Hey there, Wargamers, and welcome back to another Wargames Delivered video. In this video, we're going to be painting the Mormont she-bears from the A Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game. Let's get started.
So as you've seen with the previous videos on the channel, we have a lot of awesome miniatures from the A Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game on the site right now. So we're going to keep going with painting tutorials with them. We also have Elder Scrolls Call to Arms and Malifaux on the site as well. I don't really know too much about Elder Scrolls at the moment. I haven't really dipped my toes into that one quite yet, but I know Malifaux is an interesting Western-style kind of skirmish game, so we will be featuring that a little bit this month as well, doing some painting videos and just kind of going over how the game works and stuff. So I'm very excited about what we're going to be getting into with Malifaux with this month, and possibly into March as well. But yeah, starting out with the she-bear here, we're going to cover all of the metallic bits with gunmetal. As you can see, I've started this with a zenithal highlight, so we will be using quite a few speed paints later on, but for now we're going to go ahead and finish all of the metallic bits first, and then clean everything up before we move over to our speed paints. Once you've given the metal parts enough time to dry, we're going to switch over to our first wash step of the model. We're going to switch over to dark tone and just cover all of the areas that we did with the gunmetal before, just adding some definition and darkness to the shadows in the armor right now. In terms of things to look out for with this step, just try to avoid pooling on any unnecessary areas, flat areas, raised areas. You don't really want any pooling on places like that. And really try to get consistent shading coverage across the entirety of the metallics. You don't want, one part to be really deeply shadowed and then the other to not really have that same effect. So just try to keep your shading consistent across every part of the metallics, and you should be set. And as you can see, the dark tone is literally magic in a bottle and did us a lot of favors with shading the metallics. So we're going to move over to doing some simple highlights on them. We're going to do some plate mail metal just over the chest armor here and the greaves as well. Everything else, and the head of the mace. We'll also hit that as well. Everything else we will leave, like the chainmail, we'll all leave shaded. And this just creates a nice contrast between the two metallics that we used. Gives us a little bit of definition and variety in the color of our metallics there. So the next phase is going to be cleaning up before we switch over to our speed paints. So we're going to mix a little bit of matte white and uniform gray and try to match our zenithal highlight color that we started with the airbrush, and we will go ahead and cover any areas of that we made any mistakes on, have any metallics where they shouldn't, and any areas like that. For instance, the wash kind of lined the cloak a little bit on the inside, too much here, so I'm going to go ahead and cover that. Made a little bit of a splotch here on the leg, so we'll go ahead and cover that. You'll want about 2 thin coats on each of these cover-ups, just to be safe and get a nice even color. Alright, and with that step finished, we are ready to move into the speed paint line. So the first thing we're going to do is switch over to dark wood, and with this we're going to cover all of the fur areas of the cloak. We're going to leave the front of the cloak white for now. We're going to switch that to a different color in a later step, but for now we're just going to do the dark wood over all of the fur areas of the cloak, the gloves, and there's a couple fur areas down by each of her legs, so we'll cover those as well. And the way I like to work with speed paints is kind of put a lot of paint on a certain area and then just move it around with my brush. As you can see, I kind of started at the top there and just pushed the paint around to where it's at now. And once you kind of start to run out like I was there, that's when you'll want to go back to your palette, add a little bit more, and move on to the next sort of area. And this is the best way that I've found to get a consistent coverage of the speed paints on models like this. And moving on to our next step after the dark wood has dried, we're going to switch over to Absolution green, and with this we're going to accent the clothing of the model here. So we're going to look to hit the sleeves and the parts of the cloak that are coming out underneath the fur parts here, and this will just add a nice little bit of color, also represent the Mormont household that they fight for, and just add a little bit of interest to the model. This is kind of the darkest green that's available in the speed paint line as of right now. There is the speed paint 2.0 being released, I believe, sometime in March or April. Not exactly 100% positive on that, so don't hold me to that. But I did get a really nice kind of lighter version of this color than I thought I would get, and I was very happy with how it turned out. And moving on, we will switch over to Grim Black, and the only areas we're really looking to hit with this are the pouch on the side of the model here. There's a dagger that will hit with this color as well, and the boots. And so you'll kind of see in the close-up here on the pouch, I'm kind of using a very thinned down version of this paint, and I got a nice dark gray out of it afterwards. Same thing on the dagger on the other side. But when I painted the boots, I did it a little bit thicker, and I got the kind of color that you would expect out of Grim Black on those. Alright, and moving on into our next couple of steps, we're going to try to work as many browns as we can onto the model. We have Sand Golem, Hardened Leather, and the Dark Wood from earlier to kind of work with. And these are pretty much the three browns that you get in the speed paint line, so we're going to go ahead and just use the straight Sand Golem on the wraps around the boots and the belt here as well. So we will be mixing and matching a little bit on this model just to kind of create different tones for different leathers and woods. Moving on into our next step, we're going to switch over to Hardened Leather for the inside of the cloak here. And this is just going to give us some variation and also make it look like it's an actual animal hide that she's wearing on her back. So keep this in mind. Try not to push it too close to the sleeves and areas that we've already covered. If you do, just go ahead and use that color and go back over it later. You can actually push this color right up to the dark wood and kind of push it onto the dark wood as well to kind of blend them together and marry these two colors together as well. And later on we will be blending this with another color to create the wood tone here for the wood of the mace. So we're going to switch to Hardened Leather and a bit of the Sand Golem from earlier, and this is going to give us, if I can pick the model up, this is going to give us a nice differentiation between the Hardened Leather that we put down and the Sand Golem that we have for the belt and the wraps. And as you can see, the wood stock of the mace is just a tad lighter than the inside of the cloak and a little bit darker than the belt. So that's exactly what we were going for. Now we're going to switch over to some Pallid Bone. And with this, we're going to cover the wraps on the mace here, the hand wraps here. So this will dry a little bit lighter than the color that we created on the wood and just create a really nice subtle effect there. Next up, we're going to mix a bit of Zealot Yellow into the Pallid Bone, and this is going to be the color that we're going to use for the hair of the model, and we will save the face for last. We're going to switch over to the acrylic line for that, just because I've had some bad experience with the Crusader skin. I've also had some good experience with it as well, but I wanted to give you guys just a small rundown on how I do faces in a video. So we'll go over that here after we finish filling in the hair with the mix of the Pallid Bone and Zealot Yellow. And after this dried, I realized I didn't get too much Pallid Bone in there, which is okay. I wanted it a little bit more yellow, so this came out very well. The best thing about the A Song of Ice and Fire miniatures is you'll get a lot of miniatures and a lot of different hair colors to paint. And so before we move into the skin here, we're going to take a little bit of Desert Yellow and just cover a couple straps on her armor, and then we will move into how I do a quick and easy, effective skin tone. And so that sort of matched the sand golem that we used for the belt earlier and really tied all of the colors together on the armor there. So we're going to switch over to barbarian flesh for the skin tone. And we're going to want a pretty thin version of this. Going to use about 2 to 3 thin coats to really get a nice even cover of the color. And just take your time here. Be very careful around all of the areas that we used with speed paint and metallics earlier. We will switch over to our second wash step and final wash step here after this step. Once you've got a nice even coat there, we're going to switch over to our final wash step, which is going to be flesh wash for the entirety of the face. The only thing to watch out here is to just avoid pooling on any raised areas like the forehead or the cheeks or the nose, and really try to nail in those lower details like the recesses for the eyes, the mouth, and under the nose. Next up, we're just adding a little bit of matte white to the barbarian flesh for a nice and subtle kind of highlight on the face. This shouldn't add too much of a bright highlight, just a little bit of detail here, and you just want to pick out certain details like the nose here, the forehead, and the cheeks. And I like to go underneath the chin on a female's face too. Usually theirs is a little bit brighter and kind of take a little bit more detail better than male faces do. As always, guys, thank you for watching. Be sure to check out the top link in the description for the giveaway attached to the video. Our giveaways are now going to end on the Sunday following the week that the giveaways are announced. So every giveaway attached to our videos this week is going to end on Sunday the 19th. We're going to be doing that every week going forward, so you'll have a little bit more time in the beginning of the week to catch up on earlier videos. And the last couple of videos will be a little bit more of a race, so we'll keep that in mind. And happy wargaming, guys.